right? It takes time to develop that and cultivate that. Are you going to be the next John Dewey or Maria Montessori?
Who knows?
Again, that's big C, and usually that's decided after people are long gone and dead. There's a lot of reasons why that happens, and that's usually out of our control. But what is in our control, and I think this is what's really important for students to understand, is there's this developmental trajectory of creativity. And so something that we kind of introduced recently that I think is really helpful, particularly for students and classroom teachers, is to think about there's this trajectory. We all have these mini-C experiences, that's things that are new and personally meaningful to us. Sometimes that's enough, right? That's legitimate. You don't have to push it any further, right? But sometimes, like in a classroom setting, we might want students to develop those ideas because once they rise to little c, they can actually contribute to the experience and learning of others. So if we take time with the student's idea, not only will it help that student, it can actually help the learning of our other students. It can actually even help our own learning as teachers. We can be surprised. We often don't give our students enough credit for some of the insights they have, and we can be just blown away by how creative they are. But in order to get there, it requires feedback, right? So a kid shares an idea like Kelly saying doctors need neater handwriting. It makes sense to her, but it doesn't make sense to us, so there needs to be feedback to help kind of articulate that. And then it can rise to a level of creativity where it's like, wow, there is something underneath that. Now, to go from that kind of everyday creativity to professional levels of creativity is the practice that James was just talking about. 10,000 hours, 10 years. That's where you develop the expertise, where you really know what the box is about, so you can think within it and you can create your own box.
And that practice can come in a variety of ways. So if we're talking to somebody who maybe is an artisan, you know, it may be self-learning or practice where they're teaching themselves to paint, you know, with their own program, or they go to school. Whereas something like nuclear physics probably would involve classroom time. Most people don't teach themselves nuclear physics and rise to Pro C on their own.
Yeah, and then going from Pro C to Big C again, it takes time and it would probably add luck here.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm hearing you gentlemen speak about the personal aspects of creativity as we as teachers work with our students. I'm caught in a quandary here. How much creativity lends itself only to a personal level versus a collaborative level on the parts of students where they create something as a team or as an approach as a group and come up with a novel idea. Is that part of this process that we just say it's built into the process? Or is it something that we need to look at as a team? Because we group our students and we look at our students from several different lenses as they're learning. What part of creativity, because I can tell you right now, if I put out an idea, they may struggle for ideas. You know, it's an open-ended activity. I would like you to be creative. I set the parameters, but yet they still are starved for ideas because they haven't practiced this discipline. But yet, if I put them together in groups, where it's collective minds working together, they could generate ideas. So how much of it is just on a personal level as you're instructing us here, but what part of that is lent to the bigger group? Even Einstein didn't come up with the theory of relativity. He had several scientists before him who were the forerunners of that.
Yeah, I think those are great points. I'll start and you can share. I think it's a both and thing. So mini C is really the subjective personal experience of creativity. So even when you're working in groups, you might be having these insights, right? Little c is where it starts impacting others. And so it's feedback from others that actually grows it into something recognizable that moves beyond your own personal experience into something that could be a product that you share with others or a collaborative effort. So there is this kind of ebb and flow. And you know, I'm reminded of a saying by Mikhail Bakhtin, who talks about all of our own ideas, even our own personal ideas, are half ours and half somebody else's. Right? So even when you're alone, you're never alone. Right? You're always in dialogue with yourself and with others. So the group is always at play, but oftentimes creativity, and some students need time to work alone. Right? Groups can be, we've all been in groups that are so counterproductive. I mean, that's why many of us, including me, can't stand meetings. I mean, meetings are often the most unproductive thing. Like if somebody would just send us the email and I can work alone, I could do it in 5 minutes and we'd be done with it, right? But no, we have to talk about it. And, you know, so sometimes that's powerful. It could generate ideas. And I think we need to kind of help our students know when, and think about this. Can you structure a group activity where you can let a student self-select out and say, I'm going to do something alone for now, I'm going to join the group? I think there's an ebb and flow, and it's hard to predict that, but I think recognizing there's a time when we need to step away and maybe think about this on our own. Other students might need to always think they think better with maybe another person, but I think it's very contextual, it's very situational, and I think just having the flexibility and freedom to allow students to work alone. So when I work with my college students, I say you can work on this huge project all alone, I don't recommend it, or you can work with up to 5 or 6 people. Some students work alone, do brilliantly. Some people work with 6 students, do brilliantly. And then there's the opposite cases of both of those, right? So I think having the flexibility to know when you need to join up with other people, test your ideas out, get the feedback, and then having the freedom to step away and say, I need to do this, I need to work alone, I need to think about this all by myself. But you're never by yourself. You're with the ideas of others at all times. So that's how I respond to that.
Another thought is imagine this saying not creative. So imagine me a level here of just not being creative, and the way you get here is whatever way works. So if the child is inspired on their own, great. If they need group work, great. If they need more examples of things that in the domain, great. So it's almost like for the children who don't have the ideas, it's not that they're mini C, you need to get in little c, they might be at no C. And for here, it's by any means necessary.
So going back to your example, you might say, all right, we're going to have this activity. You can work, if you have ideas already, go for it, run with it. If you have no clue, it might help to work with others. If after working with others, you feel like you want to break off and you have an idea you want to run with, go for it. Right? So I think allowing that kind of flexibility in your classroom can be really powerful to support that process.
Including providing models, or examples of a creative work.
That's right.
That
So
if, they're just not.
What we like to talk about is all of these can have a place in teaching when you're teaching about creativity. So if you're teaching about math, you might have case studies or biographies of eminent mathematicians. Then you might bring in people who are professionals who use math every day in their work, right? Out on the farm, whatever it is, right? This is how math lives in the real world in my professional life. Here's everyday math that happens, in the grocery store, and these are my own developing ideas about math. And so you have this trajectory, and so some kid that really gets lit up by math, you can help them understand that in the classroom we might be able to generate some ideas. It's probably going to take time for you to really become a professional level of using math, and who knows what's possible here. This is aspirational, right? So I think teaching about creative expression in the different subject areas you teach is as valuable as creating opportunities for students to express creativity within that themselves. But in most cases, and we want to highlight mini-C creativity not just for kids, even highly accomplished creators can do this. I'll just give you a quick example. So this is Thomas Keller. He's a pro-C chef. He's a pro-C chef, and he was opening a new restaurant who he's very famous for. He was trying to figure out how to serve his salmon cornets. He was eating ice cream at Baskin-Robbins. They handed him his ice cream in one of these little plastic containers. He's like, that's how I can serve my salmon cornets. And then when he got reviewed by the New York Times or whatever, they acclaimed him for his delivery of these. So you can get inspiration anywhere. We'll skip that one. But basically, this is where we're typically working with in the classroom. Supporting students, giving them opportunities to come up with their own ideas that are meaningful to them, giving them opportunities to share those out, giving them feedback so that they can grow those into creative contributions. And we do want to leave some time for question and answer, but we'll go back to our example and talk about what now. What now? Okay. So it's Monday morning, or in your case it'll be Tuesday morning as you go back tomorrow. What do we do with this information? How do we bring it in the classroom? What we don't want to do, those of you that are Star Trek fans, is go into what I call the educational mind meld. We inherit as teachers this process of asking known answer questions because it's the way to get to the end of what we're teaching. So we already, if you think about it, it's really weird how we talk in schools. We ask kids questions we already know the answer to. In any other social setting, that would be a social deal breaker, right? So if I ask James, where do you want to eat after this? They said, well, let's try that place that has the, you know,
Empanadas.
empanadas. I'd be like, James, why don't you think about that some more? Larry, where would you like to go? I mean, could you imagine?